It's been really interesting timing. Everyone's talking about the Speedmaster in a lot of different ways. Now, that doesn't mean that we haven't always talked about the Speedmaster. It hasn't come up all that often. But the white Speedmaster in the standard steel version, as well as the white Moonswatch, has really caused a whole lot of interest, I should say. Now, that being said, don't know if the interest is actually with you guys, the people that are watching it, or just interest from us because it gives us something to talk about. How do I feel about the new Speedmasters? I had a few people ask me that. I feel semi-interested, I should say. The white version looks nice. Now, I have two different Speedmasters. When I say Speedmasters, I use that term somewhat loosely. I have the Omega Speedmaster here. This is the 3861 Sapphire Sandwich. So this is the most recent updated Speedmaster, but the traditional layout, meaning the black with the white indices and white hands. I also have a Moonswatch here. So this is the Mission to Jupiter. It's got those orange hands that are obviously very vintage inspired. And it has a similar case shape and architecture, obviously, than the standard Speedmaster because it's basically the exact same thing put into a plastic mold. And how do I feel about them? I don't feel like they're tainting the white Speedmaster or the classic Speedmaster. I don't know if anyone really has said that online. I'm interested in your guys' thoughts. If you leave them down below, I think this will be a better forum for discussion outside of just what I think. But obviously the standard Speedmaster is classic because it stayed the same for the last 60 years, over 60 years. So I think that is, why people love it and why people are maybe a little disinterested in the white version. That being said, is the white version like groundbreaking? The fact that now there's a white Speedmaster? No, it's a Speedmaster. I don't care if it's white or black, red. There's a racing version that's an old one. I don't care what color it is. If it looks nice and it has a good value proposition as well as it's going to fit someone's life and lifestyle, then that's great. It's a good fit. But there's already a white Speedmaster. You can see it here. It's a bicompax. I did a review recently on the Omega 57 or Speedmaster 57 in titanium. That's also white. So white Speedmasters isn't necessarily a brand new thing, but obviously, this being a steel version is a little different because it has the same tri-compax layout. It's the exact same as this, except it looks white. So it's reminding a lot of people of the Alaska Project Speedmaster. And that part I think is kind of cool. The red accent on the Speedmaster I think is beautiful. The design is obviously gorgeous, frankly, either from this or the Moonswatch version, the white Speedmaster or the white Moonswatch. The design there's nothing really that flawed in the design. Now, people can argue that the Moonswatch has a weird tri-compax layout, but the addition of the moon phase I think is kind of interesting. The pricing on the Moonswatch I think is great for entry-level people that are I'm interested in wearing one, or I want to give it to my kid, or I like the design and I want to wear it a little bit, but I don't want to ball out and buy a $6,000 watch, or I don't feel like buying a full Speedmaster, but I like the case architecture, or I like a little bit of that design heritage in a more compact and affordable case. Now, longevity of the Moonswatch obviously is the issue there. So on any Moonswatch model, you're buying a consumer good that is not going to last forever. Now, that being said, the Moonswatch it's not durable. It's definitely a durable watch. I put this actually through some of the Speedmaster NASA tests. I did test 1 and test 2. I put the first one on the channel. I haven't been able to edit the second one yet because I haven't had time, but I actually forgot about it for a long period of time. The second test of the NASA trials, if you don't know, is they put it in freezing temperatures, basically a freezer for an extended period of time. And I put this in the freezer. It's supposed to only be for 4 hours. I accidentally left it in there for 3 weeks. And I'm not kidding. I left the country and I came back and remembered that it was in there and pulled it out and it was still running. It had lost some time, sure, because it wasn't obviously as well regulated because the battery was freezing to death, but it withheld it perfectly fine. And the first test it did well on as well. I can link that video if you're interested in watching it. And obviously I can finish those trials if there's enough people that are interested. I just haven't had the time. Point is, the Moonswatch isn't not durable from an overall case architecture design and even from a movement design because these quartz movements are pretty rugged. It's not durable in the fact that these pushers can break off. It's not durable in the fact that, yes, it is a plastic watch. People can argue about ceramic or bioceramic or whatever, but it's a plastic. If you've held a ceramic watch and you've tried to scratch it with steel and then you scratch this with steel, you're killing yourself if you say that this is ceramic. Because it's not. It's got some ceramic built in it, but it doesn't mean that it's ceramic. It's like having glass-filled nylon is something that I use in my company. Just because it's 33% glass-filled doesn't mean it's a glass end cap. it's still a plastic nylon end cap, right? This is still a plastic watch, even though it has, you know, a third or 2/3 of ceramic. I can't remember what it is. Like, the bind together of the plastic resin base makes it a plastic watch because it can only break on its weakest component, which in this case would be the resin or the plastic. Point is, the Speedmaster is a classic watch, you know, but there are a few things I think that they've tweaked that I think are actually kind of improvements from the original. While this has more of a classic nature, I think some of those improvements make it more of a lasting design in a modern context. The reason why I say that, if I give an example, I did a video recently comparing my Speedmaster to my Breitling Navitimer. And the Navitimer, because of its applied indices and the fact that it has a little more accents here in terms of like flash or even just depth, like if you look at it sideways, you can see the raised indices, you can see the dip in the subdials, you can see some of the color differentiation. Like, it's just more interesting as a result. And then if you look at my Explorer 2, like, because this is a polar dial, it just tends to be a little bit more loud. It tends to be a little bit more flashy. It tends to be a little bit different. It's more legible, I think, honestly, than a lot of my other watches as a result of the white dial. It wears a little bit bigger, I would say, given its size, than a black dial would. So that's something to note with white dials. It'll probably wear a little larger than the original Speedmaster. But like, my point is, if you took the original Moonwatch, added some applied indices like you have with the Navitimer, and you added the white dial like you see with the Explorer 2, or really just the same kind of design here with the applied indices and the white dial of the Explorer 2, like, you're getting some things, I think, that would elevate it enough in a modern context, in a competitive landscape, especially with watch enthusiasts that are looking to buy, you know, their 16th watch, their 15th watch, their third watch. Like, a lot of people have flipped this watch, the Moonwatch, the standard Moonwatch, myself included. And I think part of that is just because the design is so simple that a lot of people can get bored with it or think that they want to buy something else because they're not as satisfied on an ongoing basis as they are with this. I love it. I think it photos very well. If you ever watch Instagram, like, it photographs very, very well, better than I can actually create. But it doesn't mean wearing it on your wrist means that it gives you that specific feeling. I have a video coming out of one of my newest watches that I just picked up in the Grand Seiko SBGA 415. This is an example of a dial that's beautiful, and because it's beautiful, it keeps you coming back for more. I think interest in a dial, whether that's from a color standpoint or an applied indices standpoint or a reflection standpoint or even just a dial like engraving standpoint, all that stuff brings you back to a watch. It makes you want to put it on again. Sometimes the classic nature of the Speedmaster is, yes, a perfect buy it, don't need another watch. But if you own 2 or 3 watches, it may not be a design that makes you say, I'm going to pick that out of the box, you know, 6 times out of 10 over the other watches that are in there. I think that's where the white one is definitely going to have a little bit more interest. And obviously it's new. So anytime that it's new like this, people are going to go crazy. They're going to want to buy it. People are going to want to review it on this, you know, YouTube thing, myself included. If I can get my hands on it, which I think I will, like, I will do a review to give you guys some interest. But what I try to do is give you some idea of what I like, sure, but also what I think is reasonable. Like, don't pay extra for this watch. If we've watched anything over the last several years, it's that market prices fluctuate and hype definitely lifts them higher than they ought to be. Like, if you look at a Black Bay 58 these days, it's crazy because I remember when it first came out, you couldn't buy it. And then when you went to look on the secondary market, you were paying inflated over retail prices, like $4,000, $4,800. You know, I remember a time there in the really short term when it was like, definitely you weren't going to find one under 4, typically a little over 4,000, even a year later. And then now, like, you can buy one for $2,800 on eBay. Like, may not be the perfect condition, but as a used watch, like, that's a great price for that watch. I think that's something also to consider. Like, be patient. If you like the white Speedmaster and you want to buy it at retail, go for it. But just know that anything that these watch companies make, regardless of who it is, in the next 10 years will likely be, if it's at retail, great. But typically for most brands, you know, they're probably going to be a lot less than they were at retail. So don't buy inflated prices on the secondary market. So the point is, yes, I like the new Speedmaster. I like looking at it. Does it make me regret buying the original Moonwatch? No, not at all. Like, I already have a white dial watch here in the Explorer 2. Even if I didn't have it, I think I would be more privy to wanting the classic Moonwatch design. I think it's what draws me to it. If I was interested in a cool looking watch, frankly, and I was still looking in the Omega family at chronographs, I'd probably go for the gray side of the moon if I had the money. If I had the blue side of the moon in terms of money, like I'll have a review coming up for that, like gorgeous watch. So if I had the money, I might do that instead. You know, it opens up a bigger field. And especially the price point that it sells at retail, like at $9,000, I go secondhand and I go back and I buy an Explorer 2, or I'd buy this Grand Seiko for $5,000, you know, or even the Navitimer. So like, there are a lot of other options where the value I think that the Speedmaster gives, especially the classic Moonwatch, is in the fact that you can find it at a really good price these days. And you may not be able to see that in the white one. And I think, frankly, the design, while cool, it's not the same. And so because of that, I think that it will wear off over time. Again, beautiful watch. I like it. It looks really nice from the press images I've seen. But like, is it gonna have the same sort of magic that makes people want it versus just buying a cool looking Speedmaster variant, whether it's a 57 or a gray side of the moon or whatever? I don't know. It's not the exact same as the Alaska project, so it doesn't have the heritage to pull from to make people want to buy it based on that. When I look at these images, like, yeah, it's a cool looking watch, but not something I'm going to go run out and buy, and not something that makes me regret buying this. As for the Moonswatch version of the white Moonswatch that just got released, looks great. Like, again, price point limiting. If I'm going to buy a Moonswatch, like that's the one that I buy, because all the other ones are cool, but I think this one looks better. I think the moon phase complication, little Snoopy add-on, I think is cute and fun. I think that definitely makes it more appealing. Is it worth $300, $400 when you could buy a Seiko Turtle for the same amount of money? No, definitely not. Only if you have a larger collection and you're looking at spending a decent amount of money that to you doesn't seem like a lot of money, but to most people, $300, $400, $500 on a watch is a lot of money. And to spend it on something like the Moonswatch probably would not be my choice. But if you're in this hobby, that means, or you have multiple watches, that means you've kind of lost touch with $300, $400 being a lot for a watch. And so then, yeah, you know, pick it up if you're looking at buying one. I think it looks like the best out of the bunch now. That's pretty much it. Again, long rant. I didn't want to make it too big, but that's my thoughts on the Omega Speedmasters white Moonswatch and Moonwatch. What do you guys think? Let's talk down below, because I think that's where most people should get their information. See you in the next one. Take care.